Host today, Brett Gilliland, and I am here with Mark McCormack, who's an investor. The company he's with is called Tandem Investment Partners. He's actually a serial entrepreneur who's started and grown several businesses successfully. Now he's doing the investing thing. But I just had a good time visiting with Mark before we hit record, and I'm excited to welcome you to the show, Mark. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, Brett, thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
Tell us a little bit, Mark, about Tandem briefly. It would help people get some contextual awareness of where you're coming from as an investor. And then, I don't know, maybe give us a flavor for some of the businesses that you have that you've helped to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tandem is a venture group. So we do venture capital investing. So a lot of early stage investing. We do a lot of seed rounds, A rounds. Um, the the group has only been around for about 2 years. It was started by Alex Bean and McKay Dunn. Alex's claim to fame is he sold the largest unicorn company inside of Utah for like $2.5 billion a couple years ago. Took him about 4 or 5 years to build that company up. It's called Divvy, and they sold it to Bill.com in a large deal, and he's done very, very well. And so one of the things he wanted to do after he kind of took 6 months off is he wanted to get back into investing and helping small businesses and really tech companies, the stuff that he's really, really good at. And so along the way, he picked up his partner, McKay Dunn, who came from another group. And then some of the venture partners inside of this group are like Jimmer Fredette, Austin Colley, myself, and a couple other kind of big-time guys out of Utah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, that's some good framing. As you know, basically the format for our podcast is to share something that you've learned in your entrepreneurial journey. Usually it has to do with that lesson of shifting from founder, scrappy, gritty entrepreneur who does everything or is involved in everything to figuring out how to shift to the next gear where now I'm leading a growing team, I'm building others, I'm setting a vision, those types of lessons. So I'd love to have you share one of those things that was like a pivotal moment in your own growth, in your own journey. And you could pick any of the companies that you've been involved with if it helps to have
Yeah.
some backdrop on that. But I'd love to hear a little bit about a company or two and then a key lesson that you learned that might help others.
Yeah, it's actually there's a really awesome topic for me. So I'm right in the middle of writing a book. It's untitled so far, but it's a financial literacy book. But one of the things I talk about in that book is what I refer to as the entrepreneurial arch. And that's where you go from being an entrepreneur all the way to being a CEO. And really, it's a very, very difficult transition. Sorry. The reason why is because an entrepreneur, like you said, is the grit. They're the guys that will not quit. They never stop. They don't care what the risk is. They're just going to keep on taking their vision and jam that thing until it actually works, right? Tons of pivoting, not to be all dramatic, but there's a lot of just grit that's involved in that. The CEO role is a lot different. It's a keep the ship moving. It is a make sure the processes and everything exists inside that world. It's just a different mentality. And I think one of the cool things with the entrepreneur, if you look at it from, day one, the entrepreneur is really the heart and soul of the business, right? They're the ones that took the risk. They're the ones that hired most of the people. They're the ones that fired most of the people. They're the ones that face the customer, good or bad. And the CEO is a lot more of, processes are in place and making sure that the company makes money, that they're paying their bills, that their reputation stays intact. And a lot of the times, and I would say almost 99% of the time, those are not the same person. And the risk you have from entrepreneur to CEO is actually ripping the soul out of the company. And so a lot of people, what they end up doing is that as they move to where their business, you're the $10, $15 million range in revenue, you've got to start adding like a controller and a COO and different people that really fulfill those roles. And then there might be a place for them at CEO, or they hire the CEO out and they stay founder until, either sell the business or whatever happens to it down the line. And so kind of in my own world, most of the time, I'm actually one of the few people, not to pat myself on the back, but I've been able to make that transition from entrepreneur to CEO. Now, I wouldn't go back and say that I'm a full-on entrepreneur right now, because I'm a lot more in the investing side. And that's kind of one of the things I like to point out to people, where a lot of people, you don't really want to be an entrepreneur. That might be part of the process, but what you really want to be is an investor. You want to take the money that you've made, invest it into different things, value add all over the place, and then get your capital making you money back.
Yeah, okay, that's really helpful. So that transition, I don't want to belabor the point, but that transition from scrappy, gritty, let's call it $1 million entrepreneur to $10 million CEO, that's a real thing, and I appreciate the way that you describe that for yourself and others who make that transition. And I'm of the belief that while maybe 99% of the founder owners out there don't make that transition, I think a lot higher percent could, not higher than 99, but higher than the 1% who actually do. I think a lot more could if they had the tools, the training, the structure, the people around them. And so that's what we spend our time doing, is helping a bunch of those businesses figure out how do they make that transition. So it's awesome when I meet somebody who has done it, because it's like, see, it's possible. And Mark doesn't have to be one of the very limited few who can. I've seen it enough where, you know, humble business owner who was turning wrenches before now owns a $10 million plus business and continues to lead that company because they've learned what it takes to get there. So I kind of
Yeah.
am a fan of growing and learning that way. Speaking of learning and growing, what would you advise people who are trying to make the transition? Let's say they're like, yeah, I'm one of those people. I can make the transition. What did you do to invest in yourself? How did you learn and grow? And what would you advise other people who are trying to make that transition?
So there's a few things. One of the first things is you need to find a couple of mentors. And those mentors need to have skill sets that are very, very specific to what you need from them. Like, so generally one needs to be more of a financial accountant person, and then the other one needs to be general business organization. So find someone that, that's ran a business that's like 20, 30, $40 million in revenue, and ask them what they did to help them in that transition. A lot of it's mindset. So you're going to go from you kind of go from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset, right? Like when you're a CEO, you're not going to get grumpy about a $5,000 mistake, right? You're going to make sure those processes, like if in my world, if someone makes a mistake in one of my companies, I never get mad at the employee or look at him and think, or her and say, you made that mistake, that's on you. I always go right back to my systems and processes and go, okay, how was this person able to make this mistake? And that's kind of the CEO, right? You want to go in there and fix that mistake over and over and over again, and then prevent it from ever being able to happen again. And so, and I think too is like you CEOs really, really value their time, right? They're not going to work till 4 o'clock in the morning. They're going to figure out a way to make sure that their system is in place so that they don't have to do that. It doesn't mean they don't have a couple of nights that way, but you really start valuing your time, and then you really start cramming down everything inside your organization based off of efficiency of time. And so, for example, you as a CEO, you're never going to do like accounting functions, right? You're not going to like enter in payroll. You're not going to do any of that. You're going to do high end managerial accounting where you're looking at trends of your business and over a year or 2 or 3 year period of time through your financials, you're going to look and see where the business needs to have decisions made. So I tell people a lot in the C-suite, there's no emotion in the C-suite. It's all data. You're always looking at data, and then you're going to make decisions based on how to move your company to the next goal that you've set for yourself. And the reason why you don't want emotions, right? You never want to sit there and go like, well, I feel if we do this, or maybe if we do, throw a couple $100,000 in marketing, or my one friend was talking about this. No, you're going to go through very specific things that make your business better. And I don't know if you're familiar with it. I'm sure some of your listeners are familiar with Alex Hermosi, right? He owns
Yeah,
acquisition.com.
yeah.
He's the GOAT, right? He doesn't have the recognition that Warren Buffett does yet, but that guy, he gets it, right? He is good at three things, and he goes and pounds those three things out the best that he possibly can, and everything else is hired out. So as a CEO, I'm setting the sales strategy for the company, and I'm setting the company culture. And then outside of that, I want an employee doing every single thing else, but you're still the leader of the company and you're still leading the charge. And so, and I'm trying to get some real definitive things for your listeners to listen to, but really it's that mindset where you move over to, okay, now I'm managing a business, and where I used to be the scrappy sales guy, I'm going to hire that position now. I'm going to go find the guy that gets as close to my mentality as possible, but at the same time, I'm sitting there looking at the machine and making sure nothing's leaking.
Yeah, love that. I'm going to offer another way of describing what I think you just said for validation. I want to know if I got it right. So, I mean, there's so many hats that this is an analogy that gets used a lot. There's so many hats a business owner wears. Certainly, the scrappy, gritty founder does that. By the time we get to CEO, in my opinion, there's three key responsibilities, and I think that it maps perfectly with what you just said. First responsibility is set the vision. Like we need clarity about the bigger picture that we can align. All of us can align to the clarity. So set the vision, build the team, establish the culture that you talked about, make sure you have the right people, and then get the resources. That sales strategy you talked about, like how are we, where's the money going to come from? We don't ever want to lose sight of those resources coming in. And sometimes, and you're part of a venture firm, sometimes the resources means going outside and getting some additional capital to do what you want to do. But between our own sales that we can generate and getting any outside financing we need, that leader, that CEO has to know that the runway is there, the financial resources are going to be there. So I love what you said. It maps with the way that I think about it, and in very practical ways. We got to help scrappy, gritty founders stop doing all the stuff that they learned how to do to get the business where it is now and start doing these higher level things as the leader, the CEO of the business. So really, really love that. Thank you, Mark. Um, let's transition for a few minutes. If it's helpful, I'd love to hear, because one of the things we want to do on this podcast is crack open like real issues that business owners and leaders are dealing with today. And then if there's anything practical that I can give to you as part of that, that's going to share with other people who might have similar things. So if
Awesome.
you don't mind opening up about any challenge that might be present in any of your businesses, then we could crack one thing open that might be helpful for somebody else.
Yeah, I'll take a quick minute here and kind of explain one of my businesses and kind of tell the listeners how I got into it, and I'll kind of explain kind of the problems that we're having now, right? Problems
Yeah.
that, well, so one of them is, so I own a company called Professional Floor Systems, or PFS. What we do in there is we do very high-end wood flooring. So we do it for the NBA, we do it for the NCAA tournament. In fact, I'll straight up admit to something we did. If anyone heard about the women's tournament, there was a court that had the game lines painted on it wrong. That was my
Mm-hmm.
company. So I was on a phone call really quick after ESPN realized that, it's kind of unfortunate too, because they played 6 games on there before they even noticed that the one line was off. It was only on one side. And what happens with that is there's a tool. So when you mark the lines off on a court, you actually drill a hole into the wood directly underneath the hoop. So it's right in the middle of the hoop. Then there's this tool that goes out as at different settings, and then you paint the line, right? You put the tape out, then you paint the line.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my guys or two of my guys, when they were painting the lines, just when they got to that one side, they clicked into the wrong hole. And so we marked that 3-point line in 6 inches. And so it's a huge deal. For example, that contract comes up in August, right? So this is the last games that are going to be played on the current contract, which is 10 years long, which is something we want to bid on. And so in the moment, my general manager was actually there. During the tournaments, we always have an employee on site in case something goes wrong with the floor, wood breaks, whatever, so we can fix it so that we can keep the TVs going, right? Because that's what matters in those is the TV. And so, we didn't think it was possible that can happen. We thought we had the processes in place. So one of the things I'm dealing with is I'm dealing with the NCAA. I'm dealing with the potential mills that make the wood for us, and I'm also dealing with our current client base. And so when that mistake happened, it was all over the news. It was all over Twitter. It was all over everywhere. And, we just had to quickly react to it. The coaches came out on the court. They agreed to play the game because they found out about 10 minutes before a game was going to start. And then my team fixed it within a couple of hours after the game was over. So then the next game, which was played, I think 2 days later, the lines were back to normal. So if you look, the inside of the key or inside of the 3-point lines actually stained a certain color. And we just moved the line out, sanded it all off, and just fixed it as quickly as possible. So one of the issues that we had there is that it's like a reputation management problem, right? Is we don't want to be known as the group that gets the lines wrong, because then it becomes a nightmare and people won't buy the stuff from us, and it just cascades from there. So what ended up happening is because we've done such a good job in the past with all of our NBA clients, and we do like all the Pac-12 tournaments. Well, we used to do the Pac-12 tournament. The Pac-12 is no longer, but we do all the tournaments in Vegas, every single one of them. And so we actually had a lot of clients come out when they heard about this, and they were writing emails to the NCAA and telling them how awesome of a company we are. And this is just a one-off mistake. And so kind of dealing with that reputation management, like it actually was pretty easy. Um, the NCAA, it allowed us to have a good relationship with them because there's a couple more people from the brass that we had never met that wanted to talk to us, and we were able to talk to them, get on conference calls, deal with our people in person, and that problem really was mitigated very, very quickly. And now when that comes up to bid in August, because we were able to fix something so quickly and do a good job with that and own our mistakes and just it is what it is, it actually extended our relationship further out there for being a great company to work with.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a really cool problem that you just shared. Very public one. Not one that needs any sort of coaching because you already have it resolved. But let's highlight some of the things from that situation that I think are instructive for anybody going through something similar. One is it goes back to something you said earlier, where I imagine there's not a lot of it's not super productive to get all over the team member where the mistake was made. I'm sure there's a desire to point blame somewhere and say, well, that person over there messed it up, but they got it right all the other times, and where did we go wrong in the process? So I just want to underscore that idea that you already shared. When a process fails, when there's a mistake, how do we shore that up so it doesn't happen again? The other
Yeah.
thing I just want to call out is the history of the trust that you built with many, many other clients, organizations, is what it ended up sound like not necessarily saving you, but making this transition from oops to it's resolved much smoother when you have all these other organizations saying, no, I can vouch for these people. They're amazing. So I think the past performance helps smooth some of the mistakes that happen. I mean, we're still going to have mistakes from time to time. So, what else would you draw out for people from that scenario that you shared, Mark?
Yeah, I think the biggest lessons of this, right, is treat people good, right? All the
Yeah.
time, no matter what position you're in. And there's also a thing too, and like when you do a good job for a client, you need to let them know that you've done a good job, right? Because
Mm,
take an NBA team. Golden State Warriors are one of our oldest clients, right? And they buy a lot of courts from us. They own 3 courts, and then we have the in-season tournament courts and that kind of stuff. When I don't deal with any players, right, and I don't deal with the president of the organization either. I deal with the operational people, so the director of operations, whoever. I mean, every stadium's different, right, depending on who owns the stadium and all that kind of stuff, right? But when we go there, when we meet with these clients, we're friendly with all of them, right? We become good friends with the people that put the courts down. That Golden State Warriors, we used to run the Section 7 tournament in Arizona, and we would hire their conversion team to come down and help us put 12 courts in 2 days. It's
mm.
a brutal job, right? Because it's just go, 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 go. There's 120 people, 120 laborers to manage. But those guys love coming and working with us. We pay them well, but then we take care of them and we're friends with them. Most people that come in contact with any business that I'm involved in, they view me and the entire organization as friends, or they view us as a partner. I think it's really, really important if your clients view you as a partner, and what I mean by that is you're accomplishing something together, especially inside construction, right? General contractor to subcontractor. If they view you as a partner, not just a vendor, then you get that higher level of relationship where if a mistake happens or even when good things happen, they're going to praise you more and then they're going to cover your mistakes quicker because they know that you're a partner and you take care of them.
So there's a huge, I guess, referral value, as well as a huge goodwill value when there's a problem. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I love that, Mark. Thank you so much for sharing. Those are really fun examples, especially as we're recording this. March Madness is winding down this year. It's not when
Yeah.
we'll actually get it published, but it's fun to talk to the guy who's helping all these tournaments happen. Okay, Mark, if people want to learn more about what you're doing with Tandem or any of your businesses, or want to connect with you or listen to a podcast that you have, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah, the best way to connect with me is just to follow me on Instagram and DM me. I'm not that important, so it's easy for me to connect with people still. But so my Instagram handle is President McCormack. That's it.
All
And
right.
so, and then my podcast is called the President McCormack Podcast. And the whole thing with that is 10 years ago when I was getting on Instagram, I just thought it'd be funny to call myself President McCormack. It was normally the position I took in businesses a lot. I have no aspiration to do anything political, never will. I don't want to be president of anything political or religious based or anything like that. It's just kind of a funny handle of mine. But yeah, if anyone wants to listen to my podcast or hit me up on Instagram, I mean, I'm on Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff, but I do a lot of interaction on Instagram.
All right. President McCormack. I should have introduced you that way. That's more fun. Anyway, thank you so much, Mark. Your experience in building your various companies and now as an investor is valuable for people who are on that seven-figure journey. And there are known things that come up with all these businesses. There are individual things that happen in business, but the patterns are similar across all the businesses. So when you get on here and
Yeah.
share real things that are happening for you or that have happened, those are valuable lessons. So thanks again.
And Brett, one more thing I'll add, it just kind of popped in my head just because it's kind of my normal life, but I actually teach an investing class once a month. It's free. It's open to anybody. So if people want to connect with me on Instagram and ask to come to that class, it's the third Wednesday of every month. I have a Zoom call, and it's a marketplace of ideas. So we talk about stock, we talk about crypto, we talk about anything. I bring my partners on, individuals that I think can add value to anybody. And it's for people to come and listen to and hear words so they can figure them out or participate at any level. If you want to ask questions or put something in the chat, I try in that hour to get as much information in anyone's lap as possible. And then it's just an introduction to anything that I touch. And so if you like my content or you like advice from me, it's the best way to connect.
All right. Third Wednesday of every month. Awesome. All right. Connect with Mark on Instagram, President McCormack, and just follow what he's doing. He's doing a lot of cool stuff. Thanks again, Mark, for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Brett. Thanks for having me on. This is awesome.
Okay, for all of you listening, please share, review, like, do all those things to help as many seven-figure business owners as possible. Glean the lessons from all these awesome guests that come on here, like Mark, and be sure to be with us next time. We're going to keep bringing you great interviews with great people who know what's up and can help you avoid a lot of mistakes along the way. Okay, we'll see you. Bye for now.